If people come to only hear a certain person, they need to go somewhere else. They're coming to the wrong place for the wrong reason. Because the church isn't the pastor. I know I'm a great guy and well-spoken. You know, I have a lot of knowledge. I'm good looking. You know, I'm young for my age. I still have a lot of energy and stuff, but I'm also realizing that, man, I'm getting old. Things are starting to break down. Your hands just don't work the same way, and you don't have as much strength, and you're tired. But I learned one thing. I can get by on more than 3 hours sleep. When you're on a boat with no place to go, you can lay on a hard bed and just keep turning from place to place, making sure you don't get bed sores. And you can actually lay there for 8 hours. And some days it was like, what time is it? You've got to be kidding me, and I'm not up yet. And I look at my watch because my watch tells me when I stand. So during the nights when I'm at home, by the time I get up at like 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, I've already got 3 hours that I've stood up. As long as I got up and moved around for 1 minute in that hour, it gives me the time, it gives me that I got up and moved. And I'm thinking, wow, by about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I've already got my 12 hours of standing in. And that's cool. So, I don't know about y'all, but I'm really amazed at how fast time goes by. And I got to thinking, I've been here 11 years now, going on, I'll finish 11 going on 12. And so when I got here in 2007, it was not that long ago, but yet things have really changed an awful lot. Because, let's see, my last child, Charlie, had just gotten married, I think, right? 2000, yeah. And, or no, she got married after I got here, didn't she? No, was I still at Edgewood? Cool. Maybe, that's true. Maybe I was. See, when time goes by, so does your memory. Goes out the window. But I also remember, remember when you pulled out your first cell phone? Remember what it looked like? It was like a little tiny thing, and it flipped. You still got one? Yeah. Well, yeah, if you actually went back and started watching some of the old reruns of some of the shows where they actually had the car phones, and they looked like the big old army walkie-talkies is what they look like. And it's like, who could carry one of those things around? And now when you look at it, the phones started getting smaller and smaller, right? And the problem was that you couldn't do anything with them. And now they get a little bit larger because we're getting older. And I don't know about y'all, but I try to get my screen as large as I can, right? Diana and I we were talking. And here is the thing. Anybody remember a typewriter? Yes. Yeah. Those IBM Selectrics. Yes. And before that you had the Royal manual and all of that stuff, right? But you came up with the IBM. And remember that in school you had to take a typing class? Right? So you ended up having to type with all 10 of your fingers. And so you were graded based upon the number of words per minute that you could type. It didn't matter that they were wrong, okay? It's just how fast could you type the words. And then somebody else would go back and correct them for you. And the whiteout on there that you could type and get rid of the letters. All the real cool stuff that was really neat. Well, now we were talking at breakfast yesterday, and this is how far things have come. When they go to hire someone today, they do not hire you based upon your typing skills. They hire you based upon your texting skills. If you text with one finger, you are not hireable. But if you text with one thumb, you're not hireable. You must text with both thumbs. And if you are texting with both thumbs, you are hireable. You know what? That's stupid. Because all I have to do is talk. And I come up with some great words that Siri can't understand a word I'm saying, but I can definitely talk faster than I can type. And then that's Siri's problem, is she can't understand me. Okay? It becomes my problem if I go to send that message to someone sometimes. It's called, you better read it before you send it, okay? Because it gets dumb. But in 10 years, look at how far we've come. 10 years ago, this church had pews. 10 years ago, it had green carpet. I think it was green. The lights were so dim you couldn't tell. Now the church, a lot of people, when they first put up the purple wall, it was like, you got to be kidding me. When we first put up the screens, what am I going to do with my hands now? I think lift them. You know, maybe that might help a little bit, because that's probably the only exercise you're going to get all week, is when you raise your hands to praise the Lord. And 10 years, and now we've come to the pews, we've come to, the church has totally been almost renovated, completely and entirely. New faces. Not very many of you were here 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And so the church has had turnover, and life has turnover. And in 10 years, you develop new friends and old friends, and people go and pass from place to place. But it's so amazing how much life changes in 10 years. And it doesn't matter at what age and stage of life you're in. If you were a child or an adult or a teenager, and going from place to place. And so last week, we started a new series of messages, and Michael did a great job. We started talking about chosen, and it's finding your identity in Christ, okay? And so we're trying to answer the basic questions, because so many times we want to know the question, who are we? I was reading a Facebook post that somebody had put out. And it said that Madonna's new boyfriend, Madonna's like 50-something, has a new boyfriend, 24. How many of y'all remember Tina Turner? Okay, yes. Her and Ike, well, her new boyfriend, she's now 77. Her new boyfriend is like 50-something. And then J-Lo has a new boyfriend, and I think he's like 30-something or maybe. And it said, if you're still single, don't worry. If you're a woman and you're still single, don't worry, because your husband hasn't been born yet. And the question arises, who are we? And Diana and I were talking, you know, like, okay, Madonna and her husband is this age, And most of them are maybe somebody that nobody knows. And so the question arises, then who are we? And so probably they're going to be identified as, oh, you're the new boyfriend of Madonna. You don't have a name. You're attached to something. And so many times, that's how we're identified. We're identified as, oh, you're so-and-so's sister, or so-and-so's brother, or you're so-and-so's son or daughter, or whatever. And so we get lost up because we have no identity. And I was listening this morning as they were talking on a TV, no, it wasn't on TV, it's on the radio as I was coming in, and they were talking about, remember used to when they had school dances, and the boys were on one side and the girls were on the other? And the way you got to dance with the girl was you had to walk across over there and make eye-to-eye contact with her and ask her to dance with you. And today that doesn't go. It's you're sitting on one side and we're sitting on the other side and let's text each other. And we don't even look up. I was sharing, my granddaughter had a really rough time because we're on the ship with no internet connection. And she couldn't use her phone. It's like life really, it stunk. And I'm thinking, you know what? I think I replied to a couple of people, maybe about 4 or 5 text messages and a few things off of Facebook, and that was it, man. I'm done. Can I tell you something? A secret? I may have only answered 2 emails in a week. I've got something like about 4,000 sitting in my inbox that I'll clean out at some point in time. Because I thought, you know, man, I'm on vacation. And I'm going to relax and just chill for a while and just think. And so you'll see what I'm thinking about. But let's go this morning, if you would, because we were talking from 1 Peter. And so understanding that we sang that song that you chose me from my mother's womb. And we need to understand something, ladies and gentlemen, and that is, if you're a child of God, we are chosen by God. You are chosen by the Creator. You are. And so it is, so many times we used to tell people, well, you choose either God or Satan. Well, the thing about it is you got to understand something. You can't just arbitrarily say, today I'm going to choose God. You got to understand that you can't, at your moment and your time, on your terms, choose God. You got to understand that God's Holy Spirit has to be dealing with you. God has to be doing the choosing. And what you are doing is responding to that choice. What God is saying to you is this: I want you on my team. You're special. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about you. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter how you were born. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, white or black. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you were born in a shack or you live in a shack. I mean, in some of the places that we visited, ladies and gentlemen, you want to talk about why there's devastation? Their houses are built out of wood. Their roofs might be straw or metal. That's it. And so when the wind comes through there and they're on an island, there's no place to go. Now some of them are great because the islands have hills, and so when it rains in the mountains, the water rushes straight out and goes on out to the sea. But in other places it doesn't, and it floods, and it's devastation. But it doesn't matter if your house is torn down, you're living in a shack or a cardboard box, you're living in your car, it doesn't matter. God chooses you. Amen. Not based upon location, proximity to whoever you are. He chooses you. And may I say this to you all, that President Donald Trump had to come the same way you and I come. Amen. It doesn't matter. He may be a billionaire, but he still had to answer the choice that God was choosing. And sometimes we forget this. And here's the problem. You got to understand, God is not stuck with us. We need to understand that we are His, not our own. It ain't me, it ain't you, it's Him, and it's His. And so let's go, if you would, to 1 Peter chapter 2, in verse number 9. And look at what he says. He starts out and he says, but you are a chosen people, or a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for His possession, so that you may proclaim the praises of the one who called you out of darkness into His marvelous light. And Peter starts out and he says, listen, you're a chosen people. You're royal priests. And so today, that's what Michael, I think, preached on last week. And so today, we're going to take the next part of that, which says that you are a holy nation. Now, a lot of times we stand up and we say, God, that America is no longer a holy nation. We ain't talking about America, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about the world. Amen. Everyone, no matter what nation, no matter what nationality. We were talking to a lady waiting for the plane, and we went up and she was having a hard time charging her phone. Found out she was from Westchester. We were from Westchester. Found out that she had just gone to a mission trip down to Haiti. About three of them met down there, and they were teaching kids and doing all kinds of stuff and everything. And so we were talking about how Haiti is really a rough place to go. It is not a nice place. And you need to stay in certain places. And every place where we went, they told you, wherever you go, you need to make sure you stay in certain areas, because you do not want to venture out. Because if you venture out, they know that you're American, and guess what? You may be going back to the ship, you may not. You may be going back to the ship with no money. Because so many times they'll say, hey, come on, you want to buy something? Come over here, come over here. And we were talking about how sometimes you get really afraid because all of a sudden they're taking you down an alley. They're taking you up a stairs to a second floor. And you're saying, don't feel comfortable. I ain't going there, not doing that. And they begin to warn you of those things. But you understand that those people in Haiti are a holy nation. People in Jamaica are a holy nation. People in Egypt are a holy nation. People in Iraq are a holy nation. Afghanistan, places that you don't look at. But there are Christians all over the world, ladies and gentlemen, and that makes us a holy nation. A holy nation is not defined upon who sits on the throne or who sits in the White House. A holy nation is defined upon who we are. We are not ours, we are His. And He says, you're a holy people. And so what does holy mean? Now, holy means to be set apart. You're different. You're not like everybody else. Holy means this. Whenever they would go someplace and they would come to a new spot that God had given them, they would take and they would build an altar. And they would dedicate that place to God. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you answered the call of God, when He chose you, your body, your life, your soul, everything about you, ladies and gentlemen, was now dedicated to God. That's what makes you holy. Now, did they always do right? No. But what we need to understand is that what Peter was saying, as followers of Christ, ladies and gentlemen, we need to be different. Sometimes, I don't like to admit it, but there are times every once in a while I'll troll people on Facebook who say they are Christians, very strong Christians, and I'll just go through and start looking at their posts. And I'll say, really? You got to be kidding me. You're telling everybody that, I mean, in one thing, one word, or one post, they're saying, praise God, a miracle happened in our family, and we just want you to pray for them. And then the next thing, it's really bad. It's all starred out. And sometimes it ain't starred out. And the words are there. And I'm thinking, how in the world, and what in the world are you saying? You're praising God in one sentence, and you're sitting here and you're cursing everybody else out in the next sentence. Really? That makes us different? No, that makes us the same. It's the world. And what Paul is saying is we are different. And so we're different from the world. We're different from the person that you used to be. So basically, after you start following Jesus, ladies and gentlemen, you are no longer the same. Every part of you should change. Your words should change. Your actions should change. Your thoughts, your desires, your priorities, your attitudes, your relationships, your whole life as a whole should start to change. And Peter was reminding them of this. He was saying, who are you? You are changed. You are holy. You are no longer the same. Instead, you are changed by God. And so a lot of you all think, you don't understand, Pastor. I got a lot of baggage in my life, and I can't change. Do you know what a disabled person is? Right? Everybody knows what a disabled person is. Next slide, Mark, I think, in there. Bring it up if you would. Oh, right, stop right there. Go back to, there you go. Disabled. What did God tell us to do? He said to go, right? So you know what you do when you put go and disabled together? You know what you get? Show them, Mark. God, I can't do this because I can't do this. I'm disabled. I can't do your work. I can't function. And God said to go. So if you take the word and disable and put it together, it makes God is able. You're right, you can't. The problem is we keep trying to change our life. And we can't change our life. God says He wants to change us by the renewing of your mind. So when you say, I can't do this, then what you're saying is, God, I'm disabled. And God is saying, no, you're not. Do you not understand? God is able to do whatever it is that's there. And you need to understand something. There's two truths when it comes to being changed by God. And I don't know who it was, post that I wrote this on, because they were talking about the religions of the world and all of this stuff. But you got to understand, and this is what it is. God is all about, ladies and gentlemen, a relationship. And too many times we think God is all about rules. No. Does He have rules? Yes. He has rules. They are set. They don't change. Okay? But God is more concerned about the relationship. Because when it comes to being changed by God, and when it comes to being holy, ladies and gentlemen, it isn't about whether you wear makeup, whether you wear slacks, whether you cut your hair, whether you shave, whether you don't shave, whether you shower or you don't shower, whether you eat pork or you don't eat pork, whether you go to church on Sunday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That is not the rule. The rule is God is all about a relationship. We want to make it about rules. Understanding that God says this isn't rules. It's, I have rules. But I want you to know it's about relationships. Go to 1 Peter chapter 1. If you're in the Bible with me, 1 Peter chapter 1 and verse number 15. But as the one who called you is holy, you also are to be holy in all your conduct. Because he's saying to you, just as God chooses you is holy. So you look and you say, man, this is overwhelming. You mean that I've got to be holy in everything that I do? And that's impossible. And when we hear that, and so often we think about being a Christian, we assume that God just wants us to do all the right things. That's what he wants. And not do all the things, the wrong things, right? Isn't that what everybody thinks? Amen. God, you want me to do all the right things, not the wrong things. But let me say this. You know what we've turned it into? We've turned it into a self-improvement program. I'm trying to measure up to everybody else's standards. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, you don't answer to no one but him. But him. We're not here to improve ourselves. We're here to let him improve us, okay? We turn being a Christian into this moral code. And what happened in the church growing up, here's what it was. When I grew up, when you grew up and you went to church, here were the rules. Kids must sit with their parents. And you cannot get any further than arm's length. Because if you misbehaved, it was slap. And then you would have, we grew up with an enforcer sitting on the back row. And he sat there and watched everybody. Now this guy had never been married and never had a kid. So you know what his rules were? You don't even look to the left or to the right. You keep your hands folded. And I don't want to see you move. If you've got to go to the bathroom, you cross your legs. If you needed a drink, sorry, you ain't going to die of thirst. You're going to sit there until we're finished. And ladies and gentlemen, we went to church for 2 hours. It started at 7, and 8 o'clock was not closing time. We didn't get out of there till 9 o'clock, sometimes 9:30. And if you complained, you're staying late. And people liked church so much that they stayed till 9:30. We got out of church. And you know when everybody, the last car probably left the parking lot was? About 10:30. But we still had rules. You can't chew gum. Because you find out that, yes, some kid came in chewing gum or some parent came in chewing gum and they stuck it on the bottom of the pew. And in the summertime it gets hot and it gets sticky, and the next thing you know, your leg is sticking or your pants are sticking to the bottom of the pew, and you've just ruined some clothes. And you realize it was your kids that sat there last week. And so many times we need to understand that it's not a moral code. 1 Peter 1:16 says, "For it is written, be holy because I am holy." What God is saying is this, is that because God is holy, when you're near Him and when you're close to Him and just being with Him, you are able to be or become holy. It is God is holy. And He's asking us to be holy like Him. So the more and more, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what I keep trying to tell you, the more and more that you grow in your love and your relationship with Jesus Christ, the more holy you become. And it isn't based upon what you're doing. It's based upon what He's doing in you. As you're closer and closer and closer to Him. I am finding out that the closer I get to Him, the more I love Him. Or the more that I know Him. And the more that I know Him, the more I love Him. He is just phenomenal. I mean, honestly. And so many times, you just look and see. You ever known someone that, or a couple, that maybe just being with them or being around them just makes you smile? You just look at them and you just think, wow, how could they love that much? I was reading this book by Nick Boinovich or something, I forget exactly, I can't get his name right. His mom and his dad had a child. And when this baby was born, this baby was born with no arms and no legs. And he said, they didn't know what to do. They've never seen anything like this. They hadn't been married long. They just didn't know. But he was talking about in this going from places and speaking, he ran into this couple. They got married and they wanted to have children so much. What ended up happening was the woman got pregnant, had a miscarriage, and they found out she could never ever have children. And they thought, well, we'll adopt. But instead of adopting, because they never wanted to be a foster parent, but instead they became a foster parent. And the children that they had were not children that anybody wants. I went to visit a place in Cozumel. It's a place there that is called the City of Angels. It is an orphanage. They get the kids from Mexico. Their parents, they've either been abused or they've been, mom and dad are drug addicts, or maybe they don't even know their dad. Mom's a drug addict. And so they get these kids. And so there are certain rules and regulations that the kids have at this orphanage. And we picked this because the title of this was Give Back with a Purpose. Because every cruise that you take some kind of excursion, and the excursion goes to the people that are on the excursion and this stuff and all of this. But what happened here was part of the money that you give or that you, they charge you on there, part of that money goes back into the orphanage. And so Diane and I were supposed to go, and it was our last stop, and she wasn't feeling well, and she said, do you mind if I just stay? And I said, no, just let them take all the money, whatever, I'll go. And they said, you'll come back changed from there, and you do. These kids do not want to get out of the orphanage and go back out into the mainstream Mexico. They stay there till they're 16. And at 16, they have to make a choice. Do you want to move out? Go on your own? What do you want to do? They get to go to private schools. They're taught the Bible. They're taught a whole totally different way of life. They're taught that people really do love them. And Nick writes about this in his book, about meeting some people whose lives have been changed. Do you know that in the foster system in America, a few years ago, the number was 462,000 kids. It's a lot more today. They don't have enough foster parents for these kids. I don't know if you read the news, if you watched the news. Do you know where India is? This nation over here in the Middle East, in Pakistan, in Mumbai, M-U-M-B-A-I. You know what they just found? A sex crime ring. 120,000 people. You know how many of those were kids? 90% of them were kids. Just picked up off the streets, disappeared. Because nobody loved them and nobody cared. We need to become the people that care. We need to become, and it isn't just kids, women, boys, men, they're all imprisoned because it feels like nobody loves them and nobody cares about them. And we need to become. Because what ends up happening, ladies and gentlemen, is when you start pouring love into these kids, into these people, it changes them. It brings joy. God doesn't love you because you're a good person. God knew all about you before you even knew about yourself. And He still loves you. And because of His love for you, that brings joy into our lives. It should. But unfortunately, a lot of people who call themselves Christians don't find the joy because they're not close to Him. They're being stuck. So we need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, instead of being bitter, I mean, you think about it. I was talking to Mark. This is how Satan works. Okay, I come in this morning. I go to Kroger to pick up some stuff because I thought, man, I didn't get stuff for breakfast. And I called Mark yesterday and I said, hey man, what's on the menu for tomorrow? And he told me, and I said, oh, okay. So I need to get some stuff. So I go get the stuff. I come to the back door, I unload the stuff in the refrigerator, and I come around, okay? And if any of you all know, we had the parking lot repaved with certain areas, and Rumpke came through with their big dumpster truck and put a whole path through it. And so I put out 8 cones, okay? One of them got stolen already before I left. So I come driving around here, and I see 2 cones laying down. And I thought, you have got to be kidding me. There was 5 cones there when I left. I know that. So I go into the office and I'm looking at the security camera and I want to see who stole those cones. Daggone them. And so I'm going back through there and I'm looking, I'm saying, okay, they weren't there last night, they weren't there Friday, let's go back to Thursday and let's see if they were there Thursday. Oh yes, Thursday morning, they were still there, and I'm coming through the day and I get to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and all of a sudden I see 3 kids running across the parking lot. The cones are there. Then the kids come running back. They're playing basketball, they're jumping over the cones, and the next thing I see are 3 kids with cones on their head and taking them out of here. And I'm trying my best. I want to get a picture of that face. They stole my cone. And I realized, this is so stupid. I'm coming back, I'm happy, I'm excited, and Satan will mess with your mind. Just little things. And then I thought, you know what? My joy is not based upon a stolen cone. You know? My joy is based on a stolen blessing. And you ain't got this one, I got this one, I'm okay. And so, I'll get mad later. But we need to understand, one more time I need to tell you this. It is not about rules, it's about relationship. You understand? One more time. It's not about rules, it's about relationship. Quit beating yourself up, because sometimes you need to understand something. And here's where it's at. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 14. How am I doing? Not too good. This is what happens when you go away. Okay? 1 Peter chapter 1, verse number 14, look at what he says. He says, as obedient children, do not be conformed to the desires of your former ignorance. Do you understand what he's saying? As obedient child, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. You know what he's saying? Do you know what the difference is between killing and murdering? If you don't, look it up. Because here's what you need to do. I hear people all the time say it's not right to kill. Wrong. It is in certain situations. And here's where it happens. You need to kill your old self. Your old self needs to die. It needs to go away. Little by little, ladies and gentlemen, you and I are dying. We need to understand that what happens is the closer we get to God, the more the old self dies. It's being killed. But the more you let your old self live, ladies and gentlemen, the less joy you're going to have in the Lord. Because you're not getting closer to Him, you're getting farther away from Him. You're going backwards. Go forward. Because what He says, listen, He said this in Galatians 2:20. He says, my old self, He says, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live. Why? But Christ lives in me. So what people should see is Christ in you, not your old self. Your old self should be killed. Kill it. It's okay to kill it. Matter of fact, He wants you to kill it. I know a long time people say, thou shalt not kill. That's the 10th commandment. He's saying it's okay to kill yourself. Your old self. Not physically, okay? I'm not telling you that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying spiritually. The old things need to go away. They need to move. Because you are chosen by God to be His child. Not your old self, a new self that begins to coming there. And so we need, as Peter stated, he says, don't slip back into your old ways of living to satisfy your own desires. Okay? So what do? We change. Okay? So it's not about relationship, not rules. We need to kill our old self. And one last thing, and I'll be done. Because we need to leave some stuff behind. Okay? And so what we need to understand is that we can't do what I used to do. It needs to go away. And this is what I'm saying. Remember I told you that I found out I'm getting old? I mean, honestly, they told me to take stuff, because my fingers are hard. It's like arthritis. You can't hardly bend and they hurt. And so take, some, a leave, twice a day, take a leave to do it. And I haven't been good taking my medicine, especially when I go on vacation. Sometimes I'm better on vacation than at home, but I find my joints are aching, and so I got to get back to doing that. And I find out that I can't hold things the way I used to. I was doing some work around the house before I left, and man, I got tired. And it was winded. I'm thinking, man, it was just last month I was able to pick this thing up. You're changing that much, and you get sore. Remember how it used to be you could walk for miles as a kid, and now you walk for 1 block, and you feel like, man, I've walked 2 miles uphill both ways, and it hurts and all of these things, and we're not doing this. But let me say this to you. When you try to start making these little changes, small changes, it's going to be painful. And they're not easy. But we need to understand that our old self, ladies and gentlemen, will do anything to stick around. That's where we're comfortable. That's why I keep telling you, God wants to get you out of your comfort zone. My wife, she keeps complaining. She says, because I don't speak as loud as I used to. She says, my voice has gotten softer, and it probably has, okay? And the good thing about mics is that they can increase the volume. I used to be the socialite. I mean, I would just meet anybody and stuff. And a lot of times I found myself, what's the word I'm searching for? Hogging the conversation. Is that good? Okay. I'm trying to keep food out of it. Monopolized, yeah, that's a good game. Yeah. Used to, I mean, honestly, I would monopolize the conversations and stuff. And I don't do that anymore. Now I sit back more and listen. I sit back more and observe. And the more and more I observe as I watch and listen to people talk, I don't just listen to what you're saying, I look to see how you're saying it. Your actions, your emotions, your feelings, the expressions, and all of that, because one of the things that God has blessed me with is to be able to read people. Right? Really. That's a good thing and a bad thing. Because sometimes it puts people on the spot. They'll say to you, I'll ask the question, how are you? And you'll tell me fine, and I'll look straight at you and say, no, you're not. Tell me the truth. You're not fine. Now, all of a sudden, maybe they're not fine because of pain. and they're trying to get away from that pain and the emotions that are brought with that pain. And sometimes that's not good, because now you're taking them back to a place they don't want to go to. They're trying to escape from it. But the thing about it is, let me say this to you and be as honest as I can to you, you can't. You can never escape from it, and you never will. Satan won't let you. Satan wants to continually remind you of your old self. But may I say this to you? The closer you get to God, the less power Satan has on you. You see, because God did not choose you to constantly remind you of your past. God chose you to constantly remind you of your future. Amen. Of whose you are, not what you did. He wants you to know that you are chosen, and chosen by Him. It's not always easy. That's why God wants us to know that even as a pastor, God's changing me every day. Today I'm different than what I was yesterday, and tomorrow I hope I'm different than I was today. And He continually works. And one thing is this, remember that old song? He's still working on me to make me what He wants me to be. We were coming in yesterday, and I've never ever seen this, and you want to tell me there isn't a God. I thought at first it was an optical illusion, until I heard someone else talking to someone and say, "Do you see that? Do you see that?" We've been traveling, and it was, we knew it was getting colder as we were coming north. It was 85, 89 degrees when we left Miami, and we're getting up, and we're probably somewhere over Kentucky. And I look out, and all I can see was we were up above the clouds. The sun is shining to my left side on the plane. And I got a picture of the first part of this, and then I get a picture of the second part. And I thought, man, clouds, that's a lot of rain, you know, thunderstorms and all this other stuff, right? So I turn around, and I'm you know, and I saw the sun, so I was trying to stay away from looking at the sun, so I was looking out to the right. And to the right, I saw a circle, a rainbow. Not just one. There was like 6 or 7 of them, circles of a rainbow. And I thought, no, that's moisture on the window. And I realized, no, the sun's over here. There isn't any moisture on this side. There's nothing there. And what was really neat was we're starting to descend. And the next thing you see is the image of the plane going through the rainbow. I thought, I have never ever seen anything like this before in my life. God, thank you. Just your way of telling me, you got it. It's okay. It's okay. Because the first day when we were on that ship and it was rocking, it was moving this away and this away. And a lot of people were getting sick and everything and stuff, and you wonder, there's a few times ships have turned over. They say they won't, but they will, and they can. And I've come to the realization, God, if it's my time to go, it's okay. I'm ready. I'm ready. Because I know you got this, whatever it is. May I say to you this, it is great to know that I have been chosen by the best. The best. And he's constantly reminding me every day, you're still my child, and I still love you. But we need to talk about some of the things that happened today. So we sit down and we have our conversations and we have our talks. And he says, okay, it's time to go to bed. Let's go to sleep for a while. And it's all right. And it's okay. That's the joy, ladies and gentlemen, of knowing the one who loves you. He chose you and chose you for a reason. So, let's stand.
Hello, this is Pastor Chuck Cotton from Calvary Baptist Church. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking the time out to either listen to our sermon or to watch it on video. We are grateful that you've actually taken the time and hope and pray that it has been a blessing to you as it was to us as we delivered it to our congregation. We ask if you have any questions whatsoever that you email us at pastorchuck@calvarybaptistmiddletown.org, or you could come in and give us a phone call, if you would please, at area code 513-423-7251. I'd like to take this opportunity to also invite you to come to our church and visit us, if you would please. We actually have small groups on Sunday morning starting at 9:30, with our morning worship following at 10:45. Prior to our morning small groups, we also provide donuts with coffee, milk, orange juice, a time for fellowship, get to know each other, have a good time before we actually break out into our small groups for Sunday. Our worship services are uplifting, they're fast moving, and everything in our service is just a fast pace. But we do take time every once in a while to slow down as we feel the Holy Spirit moving, and we never want to hinder it in any way. We also have on Sunday evening, during the school year, we have Awana, and Awana starts with the Puggles, actually from age 2 all the way up through high school. And during that period of time, we also have a worship service. Both of these start at 6 o'clock and end at 7:30. Our Wednesday night, we have a Bible study, which starts at 7. We generally finish about 8:15. We would love for you to come and visit with us. Don't have to dress up. Just come as you are, because to us, it doesn't matter. You're a child of God, a creation of His, and so to us, you're important to everything that we do. Our motto here is building the kingdom one life at a time, and we hope that we have a chance to visit with you, get to know you as you get to know us. So thank you, and may God bless you.